Welcome to the Wealthy SAP Consultant Podcast with your host, Anita Anello, where we empower SAP consultants to deliver premium services by showcasing their expertise to the world. In each episode, we dive deep into strategies, tips, and success stories to help SAP consultants like you elevate your consultancy game, attract high-paying clients, and maximize your revenue potential. Get ready to unlock the secrets to success in the SAP consulting world and position yourself as a top-tier consultant. To connect further and explore personalized strategies for your consulting business, schedule a strategy call with our team by clicking the link below. Enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Messy Middle. I have Lissa Figgins with us here again today. Lissa, I'm so excited to have you back on the show. Thank you so much for your time today. We were just doing just a super long intro. It's so much fun just catching up and kind of seeing what's going on. So talk to us, give us a little bit of your background for those that haven't heard you before on my show, and then we'll dive in and get going.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be a frequent flyer here on the Messy Middle. I love it. I love getting to be on the plane with amazing women like you and like those in your audience who are listening, who are really wanting to be faithful stewards of what God has given us. So I am a wife. I'm a follower of Christ. Of course, that's my first thing. I'm an empty nest mom of 3, and they are literally spread on each side of the country. So I'm so thankful for technology to still keep us connected. We live in Southern Illinois in a very rural area. And so I'm thankful for the internet to connect and do things like this. I lead in women's ministry. I really have a heart for women that are in difficult marriages. My husband was in the military, so I've lived the life of a military wife, and, just a lot of different things that God has used to bring me to where I am. And I was the poster child for busy back in the day, where I was multitasking to the max. I was checking all my boxes, even writing things on my list that I already did because it was satisfying to check that box and feel the productivity. Are you with me? And God got my attention through a diagnosis that I got. And I knew that the answer was not a quick fix pill. The answer was a heart issue and how I was viewing my time. And so now I get to serve women all over around their time and to help them increase the ROI in their time. And not just for the here and now, but for the eternal, right? Like we all know our time in this earth is not forever, and it's building towards something that will be forever. And so that should impact how we invest our time now. And so I love getting to help women with just thinking about their time in a whole different way.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so one of the things, let's go ahead and just dive right in. We have so many things that I want to be able to talk with you about today. So we've had you on the show before. First of all, I just want to mention, and I know that you'll provide the link at the end, Lissa has a new planner that's coming up in November. So just stay tuned. We'll give you more information on that a little bit later. Just a little bit of a teaser for you. You're going to want to get your hands on that. So as we were doing our intro, we were kind of talking about this concept around the Proverbs 31 woman. And what you said, you and I we've experienced different feedback from our peers inside the church, men and women alike, who have said something like, I don't know about being an entrepreneur, and how is that more godly, less godly, that kind of stuff, than going and working or being a stay-at-home mom or something or stay-at-home parent, anything like that. But then also you had another perspective about being so incredibly, I like to use the phrase, which I think would totally freak my grandmother out, when you hear all the time people say crazy busy. Because I feel like if I ever said that to my grandmother has passed, but if she were alive and I came to her and said the words crazy busy together, she would give me the look like, I don't know, why were you saying those words together? Like they were never designed to go together, Anita. And yet in our modern vernacular, we hear our friends say, oh, I'm just so crazy busy all the time. And it's like, you're not crazy. You might be super busy, but you are not crazy. So let's talk about that kind of in the context of what you were just sharing with me about the Proverbs 31 woman. And then we'll kind of segue into some other topics that relate to that. So what's your take on the Proverbs 31 woman and how she had a lot going on? She rose before the sun came up and had things going on. Some ladies are hearing that right now, ladies and gentlemen. They're like, that's a no. I'm totally not doing rising before the sun. But tell me, give me your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, here's what's so interesting, because I I'm right with you. Like, and I've probably even said this at some point too, like, I don't even want to be like her. I think so often people hear, as soon as you say the Proverbs 31 woman, you either have this like, oh my goodness, she's amazing, or you have this, she's not even real. Like that's not even possible. Right. And so I think like you said, we just kind of like, poo-poo it like it isn't, something that we should be really paying attention to. But it's really interesting because I was spending some time looking at her life over the last couple of weeks and really going, okay, but she's in scripture. So there's a reason why she's there. And she is set up as an example for us, right? So the first thing that I noticed, and I won't spend a ton of time on this because I want to get to the second part because I think that's really where our conversation is going. But the first thing I noticed is that she pays attention to all of the areas of her life. Mm. So when inside of my program, I call it the With God framework, there are 8 key areas of attention that we address, because let's be honest, if one of those areas is out of whack or getting neglected or getting too much of our time and attention, it starts affecting the other things. Mm-hmm. And if we don't start paying attention to each of the areas, now that doesn't mean that they're all getting equal time, right? For equal time and attention, but then it will start demanding our attention. And so it was really interesting. So the 8 areas are our faith walk, our family, our friendships, our service, work, business, that kind of all goes in that category, our wellness, our financial stewardship, our passions, and our homes, our dwelling. And so all 8 of those areas, I mean, I could find multiple places where she was addressing each of those areas. And so I love that because there's attention and intention around those 8 areas. Yeah. But when you and I were just talking about is like this other aspect of her life, she is a serial entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Like if you read through the Proverbs 31, you will come up with several different businesses that she has. Totally. She's trading things, she's buying fields, she's making things, she's selling them. She's doing a lot of different businesses. So when you just brought this up, and she's again put up on this pedestal as an example of a godly woman. So if we feel like our business is not being godly with our time or with our resources, this is saying the exact opposite, right? And so I love that, right? As I really looked at that. And then I teach what I call 4 CEO essentials that we need to have if we are women in business or men in business, you need the same things too. I just happen to talk to women. If we want to be able to see an ROI on our time, right? Because nobody's in business just to check boxes and just to pass time. And, but there are a lot of people out there that I talk to all the time who are working hard and not really seeing the results, right? We know she had results because there were people praising her results and saying, right, let her results speak for her. Mm-hmm. So anyway, the 4 CEO essentials, the first one is she is around her time. Like she knows what it's time for when, and I call those the CEO time blocks, right? She knows, even though you may not like it, when it's time to get up. Yep. And she knows when it's time to go to bed, right? Mm-hmm. She knows when it's time to go to the other ports and to get the supplies she needs. And she knows when it's time to be at home taking care of her family. And so that is important because guess what? She too only had 24 hours in her day, just like you and me, she didn't get extra. And so knowing what it's time for is really that first one. Do you want me to go on, just kind of highlight all 4 of them?
Yeah, okay. Totally. Yeah. And then I'll ask you some questions along the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So the second one is what I call our CEO workflows. So that's like the process that we do, kind of, you could call them, if it's around our home, it's probably more of like a routine. Mm-hmm. If it's in our business, it's going to be like a system that we create. You look at, she considered a field, she invested and bought it, she planted, and then she sold from what was planted and harvested. And then she started the cycle again, right? So she had these systems that she went through in her business, which continued to produce the results. The third one, I call CEO growth plans. And what I love is that it says in multiple places in Proverbs 31, when it's describing her, about how she's preparing for the future. Oh yeah. She's not just trying to get through the day, trying to, keep her head above water, trying to just, check another box or stay ahead of the clock. She is doing things today that are going to be for not only tomorrow, but also days, weeks, months, down the road. So she has a plan for how am I preparing for what's coming and how am I growing, right? Yeah. But here's the clincher on it all, right? And because again, we could just look at that part of her life and be like, wow, what a great entrepreneur. She had her time well ordered. She had her systems well ordered. She had her growth, mapped out, but that would be just like the rest of the world and how
Yeah.
they say do business. What is the key to her success and her results?
Mm.
It is this last piece that she fears the Lord,
Mm.
right? And so
Yeah.
that ties into what I call the CEO daily meeting, right? That we are every single day as a CEO. I've recoined that to mean a Christ empowered operator of our business.
Ooh, nice.
Right? We have to sit down with the chairman of the board.
Mm-hmm.
That's him,
Yeah.
right? And here's where we get the wisdom, we get the direction, we get everything we need and let go of the stuff that we don't want to be able to now invest our time in our life, in our business, and see that fruit. And here's what I love about all, Anita. I don't know if you ever noticed this. Who is it specifically that is praising her at the gates?
Her husband.
It's her husband and her kids,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Okay, but I want you to think about this because I was this business owner back in the day, okay? My husband and my kids were not out praising the way that I was building the business
Yeah.
because I wasn't also giving them time and attention. I
Right.
was out of balance. I
Yeah.
was always in my office. I was always in front of my computer. I was family movie night, laptop in front of me.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm here. Mom's here.
Yeah.
Phone out, right? I have to capture this moment to put it on social, like all the things, right?
Oh, yeah.
So there's no way that she was neglecting the people that mattered most to her
Mm-hmm.
because they otherwise would either keep their mouth shut or they'd be saying the opposite.
Right.
And so I think that really attests to like, this is legit. Like
Yeah.
when our family says, wow, the way that my wife or my business is, or my mom is building her business,
Mm-hmm.
like I want to tell people about it.
Yeah.
Like that is the kind of business women and men that we want to be, right?
I love that. I love that. Because if you think about it, I would say like as an entrepreneur, especially if you've come from the corporate space, you can start a business as an entrepreneur and you can have the opportunity to work twice as much and make almost nothing. Or you can build a business that has a healthy profit margin that gives you the time and money freedom that you're looking for. The late Dan Miller, who passed earlier this year, always used to say in his books and talking with him, he would tell me all the time, Anita, what good is it if you have a whole bunch of money at the end of your life, but nobody's there with you or you don't have your health? Like what good is money going to do? Right. And there's lots of variations that we've heard people say that over the years. So I love the way that you've broken this down for us to be able to understand it from a different perspective, to be able to see the systems and the processes and the intentions that were there, and then the reflection of the people all around. Because think of how the bulk of Proverbs is always comparing the wise to the foolish. The wise are the ones that are diligent. They do the work. The foolish are the ones that are lazy and sit around and don't reap the harvest, like all that kind of stuff. And so it's no surprise to us that God also reflects that in the Proverbs 31 woman. I've heard people say over the years that maybe she's not really like, she's kind of like a character of a group of women. I don't think that to be the case because I don't see evidence of that personally myself in scripture. I think that God's word is clear and he's referring to a woman and a model for us. And it's not like a collection of women because then otherwise it'd be unattainable for us as men and women. So,
right. And the context of it was around, right, telling the son what kind of, like how to find a wife.
Exactly.
So he would not be able to find her if she didn't really exist. If
right. And that,
really
there's some doctrine that teaches that we're not about that. Let's just say,
right.
No, you can only have one wife, right?
Exactly.
You don't need multiple.
Here's the thing, like and you and I were talking about this earlier, right? Like if we truly believe that God is God of abundance, then why are we walking around, even as believers, saying, I don't have time, or I don't have clients, or I don't have, money, or I don't have, or I don't have enough. Maybe it's not that I don't have, maybe it's I don't have enough. Right. And not realizing we have access to the one who holds it all in his hands, who's beyond our time, who owns, the cattle on 1,000 hills and, can bring those resources to us at any point. And, I think we really limit ourselves. And I always say, like, I think the gurus out there, so I specifically work in the time area, right? Everyone out there is saying, you just need to be better at managing your time. But you know what it means to manage something? It means to control it. And so I feel like we're playing whack-a-mole all day long, trying to keep our things right, under control because we know life happens. And, so number one, it's an illusion because it looks under control, but it doesn't mean it's staying that way.
Yeah.
Right. But it's always putting a cap because there's only so much that we can do. It's very hands, either closed-fisted, trying to hold on to it, or hands down, trying to keep it under control. What happens if we just open our hands and we receive this gift that God's given us, the gift of time, the gift of our business, the gift of the resources, the gift of the connections. And we're like, okay, this isn't mine to grab onto and control. This is mine to steward, invest, and then see him produce the 30, 60, 100-fold type of harvest that we know that he's capable of.
Yeah. I even think of that kind of in the context of when we're walking around feeling like there's so many things to do. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm not sure what next step to take. I'm stuck. Like, I know for me, my coach tells me all the time, Anita, don't say you're stuck at all. I'm figuring it out. But can we see how, like, if I'm scrolling around on my phone or doing all the things and I'm not stewarding my time well, Lissa, can we start to kind of acknowledge how that is one element that contributes to our feeling like we don't have enough time because we're not actually using the time that we have in stewarding that well. But can we also see how there's an element of like, yes, raising your hand and acknowledging like, I need help in this area. But, and you mentioned this, I love this, like, yes, going to God and recognizing like, God, I need help in this area. But then also what I've noticed in my walk is that there are times in my journey where I can only take myself, even with God, only take myself so far. And in which case I need to invest my time and my treasure with other people so that I can go farther. Right. So like scripture says, where my treasure is, there my heart is. And so as I put my treasure, my physical money treasure into investments, into myself and my business to grow that as the asset that it is, think of how that actually expands our time and helps us to go further, faster than we ever thought possible. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, yes, with God, like, yes, we're partnering and we're hearing from the Lord all the time. Those of us that are faithful, that are asking, he's answering constantly. And I love that. And I also know that there's a spot where I kind of get to the end of myself and I need other people to kind of like come around me to help me take that next step so that I can compress time, so that I can jump ahead in the line. Like, right. We're told in the marketplace, like, start small and eventually you can work your way up to where we are. And man, I'm telling you, that just drives me batty. Like because what's happening is, when we're as entrepreneurs, when we're building businesses that way, it takes the most amount of time possible. It's the most painful. It's not the most cost effective. It causes our spouses sometime to be like, hey, babe, I thought you started this as a business, not a hobby. What's going on? Like, where's some of the cash coming in? I see it going out, but it's not coming in. Right. So let's talk about that a little bit, kind of like coupling where we know our expertise to be, including God in that conversation so that we can steward, but then taking the next step of investing in help, having somebody like compress time so that we can go farther, faster, and scale our businesses to reach more. Because don't we know, like, our purpose as entrepreneurs is not to hide ourselves under a basket. It's to help others that are in pain to move out of pain and move into pleasure, whatever it is in the way that you serve them, whether it's a health or wealth or a relationship offer. Your clients are literally dying, figuratively, spiritually dying for you to come to the marketplace and give them the solution that they're looking for. They're waiting on you to be able to do that. So that might be a lot of questions all in one, but
there's a lot wrapped up in that.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind as you were talking is the parable of the servants, or the talents, as they usually call it in Matthew 25, right? We really only have two responses. I can respond in faith, like the two who went and took what they had been entrusted and invested it. Now, we don't get the details of what exactly they invested it and what happened, right? But what we do know is they went from what they were given by the master to double that when he came back.
Yeah.
Guaranteed they did not do that on their own. Right? Guaranteed that was not just them over in their little corner, like kind of moving things around and shuffling numbers and hoping it was all going to turn out, right? Like, there was some faith to like let go and do whatever that investing was in whatever it was that they put that in, right? But then we have the third one who, they were with God, right? They were with the master. They were trying to please the master, right? But their response was fear. And I have to keep this close to me because I'm afraid if I let go, I might lose some of it. But it was the people who let it go that actually got back the double. It was the person that tried to keep it that, was not only was he, at the same place he was and the master returned, but what was the master's response?
Oh,
like
angry.
Away from me.
Yeah.
Right. Like, whereas to the others, it was
no.
the good and faithful servant.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think there is a lot of like, am I trusting that when I invest this, even though this feels like a really big, scary step, that this is, it's the law of sowing and reaping.
Yeah.
And here's the beautiful thing. And I actually was just journaling about this. Planting seeds and harvesting the fruit does not happen in the same season.
No.
Right? There is time in between. And so I love 2 Corinthians 9. There's a section between verses 8 through 11 that I often go back to. And it talks about how he who provides seed for the sower and bread for food will himself supply and multiply your seed and increase the abundance of your harvest.
Yeah.
Like that's the math, right? And so that's one thing that, that I kind of think about is just, am I letting go of the seed and investing it, and that's again, going to be, go back to the Proverbs 31 woman. Yeah. It wasn't just her and God, right? Yeah. She was investing and trading with other people and she was probably learning with them and she was well respected by the leaders. And so there was a lot of investment happening, in other people. The other thing that comes to mind is the whole idea that in order for us to grow, we have to invest first and put down deep roots, right? Yeah. And so I think about, you and I were having this conversation earlier, right? We will never grow beyond what we are investing ourselves in, right? So if we've only ever invested up to a certain level, right? There's that cap, on what our growth is going to be because our roots are only going to be shallow. They're going to be a few roots, but they're going to be really shallow, right? But when we start going, okay, God has brought this opportunity, this coach, this mentor, this mastermind, this whatever this is. Yes, this feels really scary to invest in this thing because I don't know what the return is going to be. I don't know what's coming back. I can't guarantee, but I can guarantee that if I'm feeling led and I'm willing to let go of the seeds he gave me, because sometimes we, like whatever I had, I didn't come up with by my own anyway. It was all given to us. He gives us the ability to produce wealth, right? He gives us the seeds. Now I'm trusting that when I release those back and invest them in that thing, that he can and will bring that growth. And sometimes it doesn't look the way we expected.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But
yeah.
Do we believe that he can do exceedingly abundantly beyond all we ask or imagine? To him be the glory, right? Ephesians 3. Like, or do we walk around being like, okay, thanks for this, God, and we're just like these little, keeping everything really small.
No, no, I am in a season of investigating. I'll put it this way, investigating further. I just kind of keep coming back to this thought that as I go out into the world and share what only I can share, what God's done in my life, which is more beautiful. When I walk around and say, I don't have enough, I'm always waiting, I'm always struggling, I'm always this, that, the other, kind of like the lack verbiage, or no, you know what? Like I have more than enough. There's more than, like in the high ticket space there, I say this to my clients, there's more than enough high ticket buyers for you, Lissa. There's more than enough high ticket buyers for me. There's more than enough high ticket buyers for everybody listening to this podcast, with more than enough left over than we could actually all go and get. And so when you start, if I just said something as somebody who's listening right now and all of a sudden, wait a minute, what? That's actually the reality in the high ticket space. When we try to, and so my point in that is, wouldn't it be beautiful and attractive to people who don't know Jesus, who don't know the Father, who don't know the Holy Spirit, to be able to look at our lives and be like, well, she seems like she's doing really well. She's got all this abundance, this, even the outwardly stuff that says, like the markers that would see, that other people would look at and see with the success. And as I talk about it, like, oh, it's my God that gave me all of this. It's the God that gave me these, took my ordinary skill sets, added his supernatural on top of that, and did amazing things in and through me because I was faithful with what he gave me. And he gave me the vision, and my job was to go and execute on that vision and go and invest in it and grow up and do more with that. Like, wouldn't that be more beautiful as a reflection of God's love for me as his daughter, as a reflection of his glory working through me? Like, right, the word says we go from glory to glory. It's that those incremental, there we go, increases in my life that can happen suddenly, but also happen over time, of the growth and the maturity and the stewardship. Like, wouldn't that be more of a beautiful image of what God's closer to
Mm.
than, oh, like I grew up in a household, and I would dare say like a generation who thought like God was just a mad dad all the time. He
Mm.
was, and I remember put it this way, I remember people in my life saying that phrases like shame on you. There was a lot of shame, a
Mm.
lot of condemnation in the environment that I grew up on or grew up in. And like, that's nothing like God. Like, he's
Mm.
not like, that's not his character at all. And so can you see how, as a young person, when I was trying to figure out my own walk, that um, I wouldn't have associated a loving father in the way
Mm.
that scripture refers to him until I got to meet him myself, right? Until
Right.
I got to dive in and know his character. So this is just kind of like a journey that I've been on. Wouldn't it be more beautiful if entrepreneurs who are also believers had so much abundance that would be able to say to everyone that we talk with, like, look what God's done. Like, look at this. It's
Mm.
amazing. The other thing that I wanted to chat with you about a little bit is, Lissa, you mentioned like sometimes when I do an investment, it can be scary. And I actually just had this conversation with my coach a couple of weeks ago, and she and I we were in a meeting in a small setting with a couple other people, and I said, "Oh, I have this opportunity to walk forward and do this higher ticket investment, but I'm both." And I said to her, just in all transparency, I was like, "I'm both excited and terrified all at the same time. Like, what do I
Mm.
do with that?" And she said, "You know, Anita, my mentor, one of her mentors is Myron Golden. He tells me all the time, there's always two ways to look at everything. There's always like two slices of the bread, right? There's always two sides to every coin. So we can focus on the I'm terrified. It's scary. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I don't know about the outcome. I'll use the language I used earlier. I'm struggling.
Mm.
Or I can also, God says, focus on the things that are good and pure and holy, excellent and worthy of praise. Or I can focus on, I'm so excited. I'm figuring this out. This is going
Mm.
to come out. What if it turns out better than I could either think or imagine? Like,
Right.
what if, God, I put this up for you? You gave me the vision. It's your job. Like, I work for you. It's your job as the boss of my business to be able to bring the overflow and bring the outcome that you gave me the vision for. My job is just to kind of do the efforts. And so what if we had the opportunity, or what if we recognize that in every situation we have the opportunity on how we view things, whether
Mm.
it's your time or your money,
Mhm.
like, think about it. How exciting would that be if all of a sudden we're like, oh, I have more than enough? Because that's what God promises me. He promises
Yeah.
I'm going to be the head and not the tail. He promises that I can steward everything that he's given me, that it's not going to be overwhelming. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and, it's so interesting because the response in our body to both fear and excitement is the exact same physical response.
Yep.
What makes a difference, right? What makes the two sides of the coin, and like you were talking about, is what we make it mean,
Yeah.
right? And so I think you're right, because we can walk around here. Perfect example. We all have 24 hours in a day. That will never change, except for maybe daylight savings, or we get like that extra hour thrown in once in a while. But let's be honest, it doesn't change our life. Right? So you can look at that 24 hours. That is a neutral thing. And this is actually a process I take my clients through. It's called the steer belief map. I believe that our beliefs steer our results.
Mm.
So S is our situation, right? My situation is my 24 hours. It's just a fact. It's neutral. There's no right or wrong to it. It just is, right? The T is my thought. If I'm believing I don't have enough time, that 24 hours is not enough, what then is the emotion that comes out of that? I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling fear. I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling busy. I'm feeling,
Yeah.
the next E is execution. So when I'm feeling that, because I'm believing that, about that situation, what am I doing or not doing? Well,
Awesome.
I'm either running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to, get ahead of the clock or the calendar or the checklist, or I'm binging Haagen-Dazs and Netflix on the couch because I'm like, forget it. Why even bother trying? Right. And so then what's my result? That's the R. Well, yeah, I'm probably not going to have enough time to get everything done that I think I need to get done.
Yeah.
But you flip it, same situation, 24 hours in a day. If my belief and my thought is, God's given me all the time I need for what he's called me to,
Yeah.
now my emotion is expectancy,
Mm.
anticipation, excitement, like belief, right?
Yeah.
Wow, what's next? What do I get to do with this? What's this for, right? And then what's my execution? I'm not like running around like a crazy woman, right? Like I'm not running in circles like the world that's without him. I'm like intentional about where I'm investing my time because I know it's got purpose, right?
Yeah.
And the result is, yeah, I know what I'm called to. I know that, I have the time that I need for what it is, and those things are happening. And, so again, same situation, but those two different two different paths went in far different directions and results based on what I chose to believe about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. I'm so excited.
Yeah, you can do it on a napkin. So you just write STEER vertically.
There
Now,
you
the
go.
one thing I didn't say in the middle there is I always say, what's the truth?
Mm.
Because I think, again, the enemy wants us to believe you don't have time,
Yeah.
you can't, you're not doing enough, blah, 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 right? All those things. So that in the middle is the truth. What do I know to be true? What does God say is true? Like find some truth. And then we build that second version based on what's true, not on what the enemy is whispering in our ear or we're hearing from the world around us.
Right. Right. So good. Oh, I love that. Oh, Lissa, as we wrap up here today, how can people find out more about you? What about your planner that's coming up in
Right?
November?
Yes.
Talk to us.
Yes. Well, first, if you're a podcast listener, right, you probably have Anita in your ear and you like to listen to podcasts, come find me on the Redeem Her Time podcast.
Yeah.
Love hanging out, talking about life and business and time and faith and how all of this comes together. And then, yes, November 12th, I have a Redeem Her Time planner that is launching into the world. And here's what I was sharing with you before we hit record. A lot of planners just deal with the calendar. They just deal with the check the boxes, the dates, all of those things. It doesn't really get to the heart of the problem. I believe our time issues are not disordered calendars, they're disordered hearts. And so we work on the heart level first and what really matters and what we're called to and how that affects our time and how, all of this ties together. And then it overflows into our calendar. But we need those tangible resources. So this not only is a planner, it's also a personal coach because it comes along with a digital course that is going to walk you through these steps of how to shift your perspective on time, how to have the right belief around your time, like we just talked about, and then how do you not only plan out for the next year, right, but then break that down into the smaller chunks of time so that you don't feel like you're being run by a clock or a calendar or a checklist.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm very excited. So you can head to my website, which is redeemhertime.com. And there's a place right there to check out the planner. And yeah, so November 12th, then we can start putting that in people's hands.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. That's been so wonderful to talk with you again today. I just love having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. I also want to just honor you, what you're doing in the workforce and in your business right now and with your clients. You make a difference in the lives of so many people. So thank you so much, Lissa, for the way that you listen to the Lord, you study scripture, you build out systems so that we can have a better life and a better just approach to the time that God gives us every single day. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Because here's the thing, you can have all the great ideas, plans, even courses and coaches. But if you are not being intentional with your time and learning how to steward it instead of control it, it's just going to sit, right? And it's not going to really produce the results that you want it to. So yeah. I really believe the two go hand in hand. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Anita.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of the Wealthy SAP Consultant Podcast with your host, Anita Anello. We hope you gained valuable insights and strategies to take your consulting business to new heights. Remember, by showcasing your expertise and delivering premium services, you can attract high-paying clients and increase your revenues while serving your customers at the highest levels. To dive deeper into implementing these strategies and overcoming challenges in your consulting journey, schedule a strategy call with our team by clicking on the link below. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll continue to provide you with actionable tips and advice to excel in the SAP consulting industry. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, keep shining in your consulting business.